cold silence of deep space stretched endlessly around the crew. Their ship, the Aurora, drifted slowly near the red star Proxima Centauri, its silver body shining faintly against the dark void. Inside, the crew of 6 moved carefully, watching the blinking lights on their control panels. They had traveled for years, leaving Earth far behind, searching for new worlds, new life, and a chance for survival beyond the solar system. The captain, Elias, sat in the command chair, his eyes fixed on the wide glass window. He had seen stars all his life, but tonight felt different. The sensors showed strange numbers, signals that should not exist. His hand tightened on the armrest, and his voice was low but steady. "Something is out there," he said. The crew gathered around, staring at the main screen. A green pulse moved across the radar, echoing like a heartbeat. But this was no asteroid, no star flare, no natural thing. As the screen cleared, a shape appeared. A massive structure orbiting the star, glowing faintly with cold light. "Is it a station?" whispered Mira, the engineer, her voice shaking. No one answered, because none of them had ever seen anything like this before. It was huge, larger than any human-made city, floating in the silence of space. Sharp towers reached upward, like broken teeth, and long bridges stretched between them. It looked both alive and dead, beautiful and terrifying. The crew leaned closer to the glass window, trying to understand. "Maybe it's natural," said Jonas, the youngest explorer, though. His voice betrayed his fear, but Elias shook his head. "No. Nature doesn't build like this," he replied, his words heavy. "This is a colony." The word hung in the air like a ghost, an alien colony, sitting quietly near Proxima Centauri, waiting, watching, and hidden from the universe until now. The silence inside the ship grew louder, pressing against their hearts. For a moment, no one breathed. They all felt the same thought burn inside them. "We are not alone." The ship moved closer. Guided by the captain's slow hand, the glow of the colony grew brighter, revealing broken walls and strange markings on the surface. The material was not metal, they knew, not stone, not anything from Earth. It shimmered like liquid, but stood solid, as if it belonged to another law of physics. "Look," Mira whispered. Pointing at the giant doors, they were open, as if inviting them in, as if waiting. Fear and wonder mixed inside every heart. Should they enter? Should they turn away? Their mission was to explore, but some truths are too dangerous to touch. Jonas tried to laugh, but the sound cracked. "If we don't go in, the world will never believe us," he said, but Ilias's eyes stayed fixed. On the silent towers, he felt something deep, something heavy. Like the colony was alive, and watching them back, the crew argued softly, their voices sharp with fear, but slowly, the decision became clear. This was history. This was discovery. And they were the first. The Aurora drifted closer, its lights shining across the alien walls. The silence of the colony was unnatural. Too quiet, too perfect, not a single sound, not a single movement, and yet the crew felt eyes on them, unseen, unknown, waiting. As the ship reached the entrance, the scanners went wild. Strange symbols flashed on the screens, lines of alien code twisting like living fire. Electric sparks moved across the glass, as if the colony itself was speaking. But no one could understand. The ship shook slightly, deep vibration humming through the floor. Jonas gasped. "It knows we are here," he whispered. Mira's hands shook as she grabbed the control board. "It's pulling us in," she said. Elias stood tall, his voice calm but filled with dread. "Then we will see what waits for us inside," he answered. The colony swallowed their ship like a giant mouth. Darkness wrapped around them, the star outside fading behind the heavy doors. Inside, only shadows remained, long and cold. The walls glowed faintly with strange blue light, like veins pumping energy through a sleeping body. The crew stared in. Silence, their hearts racing faster than the blinking lights. They had entered a place where no human had ever been, a place that might hold answers, or death. The captain whispered, almost to himself, "This is not discovery," he said slowly. "This is something else." The silence grew thicker, pressing against their ears, and deep inside, they all felt the same terror. They had not found the colony. The colony had found them. The ship Aurora floated in silence. Swallowed by the alien colony, outside, the great doors closed slowly. Shutting out the red glow of Proxima Centauri, the crew of 6 stood frozen at their windows, staring into the dark that now surrounded them. The only light came from strange glowing lines that crawled along the walls of the massive chamber. They looked like veins, pulsing with a faint blue energy, alive yet lifeless at the same time. No one spoke at first. Even the hum of the ship seemed too loud, echoing in the hollow silence. Finally, Mira broke the quiet, her voice trembling. "It feels like the whole place is breathing," she whispered. Urge sent a shiver through the crew, because they all felt the same thing. This colony was not just a building, it was a living machine. Captain Elias straightened, trying to keep control. "We came here for answers, not fear," he said firmly, though his heart pounded in his chest. "Prepare the landing team," Jonas, Mira, and Dr. Hale, the ship's biologist, stepped forward, their faces pale. They put on their suits, the glass visors reflecting the faint blue glow outside. The airlock hissed as it opened, and the 3 stepped out into the alien colony. Their boots touched the surface, and it felt strange beneath them. It was not metal, not stone, but something soft and cold, almost like skin. Jonas pressed his hand against the wall and pulled back quickly. "It's warm," he said, his voice shaking. Mira swallowed hard, her eyes wide. "Then it's alive," she whispered. The hallway stretched ahead, endless and silent, tall walls curved high above them, covered with alien markings that glowed faintly. The symbols twisted like waves, shifting slowly as if they were alive too. Dr. Hale lifted a scanner, his hands unsteady. "These patterns, they are not just art," he said. "They could be language." The deeper they walked, the more the colony seemed to respond. Lights flickered along the walls as they moved. Shadows stretched and bent as if following their steps, every sound. They made every breath, every boot step echoed strangely, too long, too sharp. It was as if the colony itself was listening back on the ship. Elias and the 2 remaining crew members watched from the cameras. The images flickered with static, sometimes breaking apart as if something interfered. "Signal's weak," said the pilot Arik. "It's like the place doesn't want us to see inside." Ilias's jaw tightened, his eyes locked on the screen. "Keep recording," he ordered, but inside, his chest filled with dread. Jonas. Mira and Hale reached a wide chamber, larger than any they had seen before. The walls curved into a perfect circle, and in the center stood a tall black pillar. It pulsed with slow light, beating like a heart. Jonas stepped closer, his voice whispering in awe. This must be the core. The closer he moved, the stronger the pulse became. It almost matched the rhythm of their own hearts. Suddenly, a sound cut through the silence. It was soft at first. It's like a whisper carried through water. Then it grew louder, echoing across the walls. The crew froze, their eyes wide behind their visors. "Did you hear that?" Mira asked, her voice barely holding steady. Dr. Hale nodded slowly, his face pale. "It's voices," he said. "They're speaking." The sound grew sharper, like many voices speaking at once. The words were alien, impossible to understand, but the emotion was clear: fear, anger, warning. The lights on the pillar flared bright, casting long shadows across the chamber. And then, without warning, the voices stopped. The silence that followed was worse, heavier, as if the entire colony held its breath. Jonas turned to leave, his steps quick and clumsy. "This is wrong," he said, his voice cracking. "This place doesn't want us here." But as he spoke, another sound echoed through the halls. This time, it was not a voice. It was footsteps. Slow, heavy, and deliberate. They came from the far end of the chamber, where the shadows stretched. Deepest, the 3 explorers spun around, their lights cutting through the dark. At first, nothing moved, only silence and empty walls. Then, in the corner of the chamber, something shifted. A figure stepped into the faint blue glow. It was tall, thin, and twisted, its body shining like black metal. But it was not human, not alive in the way they knew. Its face was smooth, without eyes. But it turned toward them as if it could see. The thing tilted its head slowly, like a predator studying prey. Jonas stumbled back, his breath sharp inside his helmet. "What is that?" he whispered. No one answered, because no one knew. The figure raised one long arm. The blue light of the colony flared again. Symbols on the walls twisted violently, glowing brighter than before. The scanners in Hale's hands exploded with static, sparks flying. "We need to leave," Mira shouted, her voice breaking. They turned to run, their boots pounding against the strange floor. But the footsteps followed, faster now, louder, closer. Back on the Aurora, Elias stood frozen as the camera feed shook with static. He saw only flashes, his crew running, lights blinding the screens, shadows chasing them. Then the feed went black. The ship was silent, every crew member staring at the dead monitors. And in the dark silence, Elias whispered the truth none of them wanted to accept: they are not alone in there. The crew of the Aurora sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the dark screens. The feed from Jonas, Mira, and Dr. Hale had cut out without warning. Only the echo of their last screams remained in the memory of the watchers. Captain Elias stood, still, his face pale in the dim light. The silence pressed against his chest like a heavy weight. Then, after what felt like hours, the screen flickered. Static cleared for a moment, and a blurry image returned. It showed the landing team running through long alien halls. Their lights bounced wildly, cutting across strange walls covered in glowing veins. The footsteps behind them grew louder, though the camera caught nothing. Something was following them. Something unseen inside the colony. Jonas stumbled to the side, gasping for air. "Stop, stop!" he shouted, his voice shaking. Mira grabbed his arm, dragging him forward. "We can't stop, it's right behind us," she cried. But Dr. Hale slowed. His eyes locked on something shining ahead in the darkness of the chamber. A faint glow appeared, not blue this time, but green, soft and steady. It pulsed gently like the glow of fireflies in a summer night. Hale's fear turned into wonder. He stepped forward slowly. Ignoring the calls of the others, the light came from a small doorway, hidden between giant alien walls. They entered the room, and their breaths caught in their throats. The walls were covered in plants. Not like Earth plants, but strange and alien. They grew without soil, without water. Their roots clinging to the glowing veins of the walls, the leaves shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid. Some plants moved slowly, as if breathing. Others opened like flowers, releasing glowing dust into the air. "It's alive," Hale whispered, tears shining in his eyes. Real alien life. Myra reached out to touch one, but the leaf pulled away from her hand. It shivered, as if it could feel her. Jonas stared in shock. "They're not just plants," he said softly. They're aware." As they moved deeper, they found pools of liquid at the floor. The water glowed faintly, clear but thick, like melted glass. Small creatures swam inside, their bodies thin and transparent. They had no eyes, yet they moved in perfect patterns. When Mira leaned closer, they swam upward, pressing against the glass of her helmet. Like they were studying her, like they wanted to see her face. Suddenly, a sound filled the chamber. It was soft at first, like the wind. Then it became sharper, rising and falling like singing. The plants swayed gently, moving to the sound. The glowing dust in the air spun in circles, forming strange patterns. The whole room felt alive, like a giant living heart. But beneath the beauty, there was something wrong. The song was not peaceful. It was sad, desperate. Almost like a warning, Jonas backed away, his voice trembling. "It's calling to something," he whispered. "Something is listening." Back on the ship, Elias leaned forward, his eyes wide. The screen shook with interference, but the sound came through clearly. The strange singing filled the Aurora, echoing in every corner. The crew froze, their hearts pounding in fear, even though the words were alien. The emotion was clear: pain, loss, hunger, inside the chamber. Mira covered her ears. "It's too much," she shouted. Her voice echoed strangely, as if the walls copied her words. Then the plants shivered violently. and the glowing dust turned red. The singing stopped, replaced by silence so sharp. Hurt, Dr. Hale looked around, panic rising in his eyes. "They know we are here," he said. "They don't want us." The plants began to close, folding their leaves tightly. The pools of liquid bubbled, and the small creatures vanished into the depths. And the glowing veins on the walls pulsed faster, brighter, angrier, and then a shadow moved across the far wall. It was tall, bending unnaturally. Shifting like smoke, the shadow had no body, yet it walked, step by step, closer and closer. Jonas raised his light, but there was nothing there, only the shadow. It stretched across the plants, across the pools, until it stood right beside him, cold. Air rushed through the chamber, the plants shook violently. Releasing more red dust, Jonas fell back, his voice breaking. "It touched me," he cried, clutching his arm. Myra pulled him up, terror in her eyes. "We need to leave, now." The three ran out of the chamber, their boots hitting the soft floor. Behind them the plants screamed. A sound unlike anything human. The glowing dust filled the air, swirling. Like a storm, the shadows stretched after them, long arms reaching across the walls. The hallway shook, and the lights above flashed red, back on the ship. Elias gripped the edge of the console, the screens blurred, showing only flashes, his team running, shadows chasing, lights exploding. One final image came through before the feed died again. It was a wall, covered in alien symbols glowing blood red. The symbols twisted into shapes that looked almost human, and one word appeared again and again, a warning written in alien fire: leave. Asterisk, the colony was no longer silent. The walls shook with a low hum, like the growl of a beast waking from deep sleep. Red light pulsed through the glowing veins, filling the halls with a warning glow. The crew of three, Jonas, Mira, and Dr. Hale, ran through twisting corridors. Their hearts pounded louder than their footsteps. Captain Elias watched from the Aurora, the screen flickering with broken images. He saw only pieces, the flash of red dust, the blur of shadows, the terrified faces of his crew. "Get them out!" Elias shouted, his voice sharp. But the ship's systems screamed with errors. The colony was interfering, bending their signals, blocking their escape. Inside, the explorers stumbled into a wide chamber. The ceiling rose so high it vanished into darkness. Rows of strange machines lined the walls, tall and sharp, like metallic statues at first. They thought the machines were dead, silent relics of an alien past. But then, one of the statues moved. A sharp clicking noise filled the air. Metal scraped against metal as the machine unfolded its thin arms, its head tilted to red lights glowing where eyes should be. The statue stepped forward, its movements sharp and insect-like. The sound of claws echoed across the chamber floor. Jonas gasped, stumbling back. "They're not statues," he cried. All around them, the machines began to move, dozens of them. Their bodies rising from stillness, their glowing red eyes locking. Onto the humans they looked like metallic insects, tall and thin, with long legs and sharp claws. The first drone lunged, its claws scraping sparks across the floor. Mira fired her flare gun. The only weapon they had, the bright light exploded. Against the creature's chest, the drone staggered back but did not fall. Its glowing eyes flared brighter, and a sharp scream echoed from its metal body. The other drones answered, their screams mixing into a terrifying chorus. The sound shook the walls, the floor vibrating under their feet. "Run!" Dr. Hale shouted, grabbing Myra's arm. The three sprinted down another hall. The swarm of drones chasing close behind, their metallic legs clicked loudly, faster, hungrier, back on the Aurora. The crew heard the same screams through the speakers. The sound cut through their bones. Arik, the pilot, covered his ears. "They'll never make it," he whispered. But Elias slammed his fist on the console. "They will," he growled. "They have to." Inside the colony, Jonas tripped and fell. One of the drones leaped, its claws slashing down at the last moment. Myra pulled him up, the claws scraping across the wall. Sparks flew, and the drone shrieked again.
Ow.
They ran into another chamber, slamming the door controls behind them. The heavy alien doors slid shut.
Ow. Sealing the swarm outside, silence filled.
The room, broken only by their ragged breaths. Jonas leaned against the wall, Shaking their machines, he said, his voice thin. They're guarding this place. Dr. Hale stared at the glowing veins across the walls. Not machines, he whispered. They're soldiers. The chamber was darker than the others. At its center stood a circular platform covered with strange symbols. The glow from the veins fed into the platform. Pulsing like blood, Mira stepped closer, her eyes wide. What are they protecting? She asked softly before anyone could answer. The door shook violently. The sound of claws scraping metal echoed from outside. The drones were breaking through. Jonas screamed, grabbing a piece of broken metal as a weapon. They're coming in. The door bent inward, sparks flying through the crack. Red eyes glowed like fire. One drone forced its way inside, crawling across the floor like a spider. Its claws slashed the air, sparks lighting the dark. Myra swung her metal bar. Striking the drone's head, the creature screeched, twisting violently. But another drone was already pushing through. Back on the ship, Elias could only watch as the feed shook with static. Flashes of his crew fighting, flashes of red light. Screams echoing, his chest ached, his fists clenched. He wanted to pull them out. But the colony held the ship in its grip. The Aurora was trapped as much as its crew. Inside the chamber, the fight grew desperate. Myra swung again, her arms weak from fear. Jonas stabbed the broken metal into the chest of one drone. Sparks exploding in the air, the creature screamed, falling backward, but two more took its place. Dr. Hale shouted, pointing at the glowing platform. It's energy! He cried, they're feeding from it. Mira looked around, her face pale but determined. Then we cut it off, she said. She ran to the platform, pulling wires, breaking glowing veins with her bare hands. The blue light flickered. The room shaking violently. The drones screamed louder, their bodies jerking as if in pain. One lunged at her, but Jonas tackled it, the claws slashing across his suit. Blood spread across his arm, but he did not stop. Do it, he shouted. Mira ripped the final glowing vein from the platform. The light died instantly, the room falling. Into deep darkness, the drones froze, their red eyes flickering. One by one, they collapsed, their metal bodies falling to the ground. The silence returned, heavy and suffocating. The crew stood shaking, their hearts racing. They had survived the first attack. But Dr. Hale stared at the broken platform, his face pale. They weren't attacking us for survival, he whispered. They were protecting something. Mira turned, her voice unsteady. Protecting what? She asked, Hale's eyes locked on the platform, his breath sharp. Not what, he said slowly. Who? The chamber lay silent, the broken machines scattered across the floor like fallen insects. The red glow had faded, leaving only faint. Blue veins across the walls. Jonas held his bleeding arm, his breath sharp and uneven. Mira tied a strip of cloth around his wound, her hands shaking. Dr. Hale stood apart, staring at the dead platform, his face pale and haunted. They were guarding something, Hale whispered. His voice echoed softly in the heavy air. The others turned toward him, fear tightening their chests. Guarding what? The question burned in every mind. Mira's voice cracked as she spoke. Then we find out, she said. The crew moved deeper into the colony. The halls grew narrower, the walls closer, as if the colony itself was trying to squeeze them. Strange. Symbols glowed brighter the farther they walked. Some symbols shifted into shapes that almost looked like faces. Eyes staring, mouths screaming. Frozen in glowing fire, Elias and the crew on the Aurora tried to keep contact. The feed flickered. With static, but the voices of the explorers broke through at times. Every sound sent shivers across the ship. Arik whispered they shouldn't be there, but Elias only tightened his jaw. They've already gone too far, he said. At last the hallway opened into a vast chamber, ceiling arched high above, disappearing into shadows. At the center stood hundreds of giant pods. Each pod was tall and smooth, glowing faintly with pale light. They stretched in perfect rows like a graveyard of glass. Jonas froze, his voice thin and fearful. What? What is this place? He whispered. Myra stepped closer, her boots echoing in the silence inside one of the pods. A shape shifted, she gasped, stumbling back. There's something inside, she cried. Dr. Hale ran forward. his scanner shaking in his hands. He pressed it against the glass of the nearest pod. The screen flashed with impossible readings. The shape inside was humanoid but twisted. Its body was half organic, half metal, smooth black skin merged with silver wires, eyes closed, mouth sealed, frozen in eternal sleep. Hale whispered, "They're alive." Jonas shook his head violently. No, they can't be. But as they looked closer, the truth was undeniable. Every pod held a body, hundreds of them, waiting. Mira touched the glass of another pod. The surface was cold, but beneath it, she felt movement.
Ow.
A faint vibration, like a heartbeat. She pulled her hand back quickly, her breath shaking. "They're sleeping," she said softly. "They're still alive." The silence grew heavier. Pressing against their ears, Jonas stumbled backward, terror in his eyes. "This is wrong," he said. "We have to leave now, before they wake." But Hale shook his head. "No, Jonas," he said slowly. "They're not just sleeping, they're being kept. They're waiting." The chamber suddenly shook, a deep vibration rumbling through the floor. The pods glowed brighter, their pale light turning sharp and cold. Symbols across the walls burned red, twisting into warnings. The hum of machines echoed from the shadows above. The colony had felt their presence, and it was responding back. On the Aurora, alarm screamed. Elias grabbed the console, his eyes wide, energy surged inside the colony. Arik shouted, the screens flickered, showing flashes of the pod chamber, rows of glowing coffins stretching into the dark. Elias's heart froze as he saw movement inside one of them. A hand pressed against the glass, clawing from within, inside. The chamber, Myra screamed. One of the pods cracked, pale mist pouring out. The shape inside twitched, its eyes flickering with faint red light. Jonas stumbled back, his voice breaking. "They're waking up." He cried. The pod split open with a sharp hiss. The creature inside stepped out, its body dripping with strange liquid. It was taller than a human, its black skin shining under the faint light. Silver wires ran across its chest, its arms ending. In sharp claws, its face was smooth. No mouth, no nose. Only two glowing red eyes. The creature tilted its head slowly, staring at them. Then, from the other pods, more cracks began to spread. One by one, the glass split open. Mist poured into. The air like smoke from a burning graveyard. "They're not dead," Hale whispered in horror. They were never dead. The creature stepped forward. Their movements slow but deliberate, each one turned toward the humans. Their glowing eyes locking onto them, a chorus of mechanical breaths filled the chamber. The sound was wrong, too deep, too heavy. Not meant for human ears. Jonas grabbed Mira's arm, pulling her toward the exit. "We can't fight them," he shouted. "They were built for war." Mira's voice shook, but she nodded. They ran toward the hallway, the sound of claws scraping behind them. Creatures moved as one, like a hive, their red eyes burning through the dark. Back on the ship, Elias stared at the screens. The sight of the pods breaking open filled him. With dread, his crew had uncovered the truth, but it was not a discovery, it was a nightmare, whispered to himself, though his voice shook. They found a colony, yes, but not abandoned, never abandoned, inside the chamber. The sound grew louder, the walls shook, the floor trembled. Hundreds of eyes glowed red in the dark. The humans ran, their hearts pounding, and behind them, the first of the sleeping army. Stepped fully into the light, the truth had awakened, and it was terrifying. The colony shook like a living storm. The walls pulsed with red light, glowing veins racing with fire. The sound of breaking glass echoed endlessly. One by one, the alien pods opened. Mist, pouring out like smoke from graves, the frozen army was waking, and the humans were trapped. Inside, Jonas, bleeding and terrified, pulled Mira by the arm. "Run," he shouted, his voice breaking with fear. Dr. Hale followed close. His scanner clutched against his chest. Behind them, claws scraped the floor. Heavy steps rattling the ground, the creatures moved with slow, deliberate hunger. Their glowing eyes burned in the dark, hundreds of them. The three stumbled through a long corridor, the walls bent and twisted, live with symbols that screamed warnings in red fire. The air grew thicker, hotter, each breath sharp like knives. Mira coughed inside her helmet, panic filling her lungs. "This whole place is waking up," she gasped. Jonas turned his head, seeing shadows stretching behind them. "They're coming for us," he whispered, back on the Aurora. Elias gripped the console with white knuckles. The screens flashed, with static, then cleared in short bursts. He saw his crew running, alien claws chasing, pods splitting open behind them. "Open the dock," Elias barked. Eric shook his head in fear. "I can't," he said, his hands shaking. "The colony has locked us in. It's holding the ship inside." The explorers reached a fork in the halls. The left path glowed faintly with blue veins. Pulsing calmly, the right path burned with red light. Shaking with the sound of claws, they had no choice. They turned left. Their boots hit the soft ground hard, each step echoing like a drumbeat of panic. The hall narrowed until it opened into another chamber, but this room was different. Tall windows stretched across the walls, revealing the black void of space outside for a moment. The sight of the stars gave them hope, but then the floor beneath them shifted, rising and lowering, like the breath of a giant beast. Mira froze, her voice trembling. "This place isn't just alive," she whispered. "It's moving," suddenly. The chamber shook violently. Metal drones dropped from the ceiling, their eyes burning red. Not dozens, but hundreds, falling like raining knives. The humans screamed, running toward the far side of the chamber. The drone's claws tore into the floor, sparks flying. Jonas swung his metal bar desperately, shattering one into pieces. But for every drone that fell, 3 more appeared. "They're pushing us back," Hale shouted. "They're hurting us." Myra's eyes widened with terror. "Toward what?" she cried. The answer came too quickly. From the far wall, a massive door opened. Splitting apart with a roar, a deeper chamber waited, darker than the void outside. The drones chased them inside, forcing them to run without choice. Inside the dark chamber, the air felt colder, heavier. Strange liquid dripped from the ceiling, glowing faintly as it hit the ground. The floor was covered with broken shells, the remains of pods long emptied. Jonas stumbled over one. Falling hard, he looked down and froze. The shell held bones, human bones. Dozens of them scattered across the floor. "They've been here before," he whispered in horror. Mira dragged him up, her voice sharp with panic. "We can't stop. Move," she shouted, but Hale stood frozen, his eyes wide as he stared at the walls. They were covered with carvings, crude but clear. The carvings showed creatures falling from pods, spreading across stars, armies marching, worlds burning, and in one corner, the carving showed Earth, a circle marked with lines, flames rising from it. Hale's face drained of blood. "They were never sleeping," he whispered. "They were waiting for the right time, the right signal." Jonas grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. "No more talking. We need to leave," he shouted. The ground shook again, and a massive figure stepped from the shadows. It was taller than the drones, larger than the others. Its body glowed faintly with red energy, its chest pulsing like a furnace. It looked like a leader, a commander of the frozen army. Its eyes burned brighter than the rest, staring straight at the humans. The drones screamed in unison, their sound like 1,000 knives scraping metal. The commander raised its clawed arm, and the drones rushed forward. Jonas swung wildly. Mira fought with all her strength. Holly screamed, but they were overwhelmed. Too many, too fast, too strong. One claw slashed across Jonas's chest, his suit tearing open. He fell hard, blood spilling across the alien floor. Mira dropped to her knees beside him, her eyes wet with tears. "No, no, stay with me," she cried. Jonas gasped, his face pale. "Go," he whispered, his voice weak. "Go now," with the last of his strength. He shoved the broken metal bar into the chest of a drone, sparks exploding. "Run," he shouted. Mira and Hale hesitated. Only a second before obeying, they ran toward the far door, their screams echoing behind them. Jonas's voice was swallowed by the sound of claws and screams. The commander stepped closer, his glowing eyes burning brighter. Jonas's body disappeared beneath the swarm. Back on the Aurora, Elias slammed his fist against the console. He had seen enough through the broken feed. His heart ached. His mind raged. They were losing crew, losing hope. And the colony was tightening its grip on all of them. Inside the endless halls, Mira and Hale kept running, their breaths sharp, their bodies weak, but their fears stronger. They could hear the swarm behind them. Faster and closer every second, the colony was alive, and it wanted them, the only choice. Left was clear, escape or die. The halls of the alien colony shook with every step. Red light raced through the glowing veins, pulsing faster and louder like the heartbeat of a monster. Mira and Dr. Hale ran side by side, their lungs burning. Their hearts heavy with the loss of Jonas. The screams of drones echoed behind them, claws scraping the walls. The frozen army was awake now. It would never sleep again. Myra stumbled, her body trembling with exhaustion, but Hale grabbed her arm, pulling her forward. "We can't stop," he said, his voice breaking. "If we stop, we die." They turned a sharp corner and found themselves in a massive chamber. The largest they had seen so far, the walls rose high, covered in endless rows of glowing symbols. At the center stood a towering machine, taller than any building on Earth. It pulsed with dark red energy. Cables stretched from its sides, feeding into the walls. The floor and the ceiling, the whole colony seemed to connect into this one machine. It was not just the heart of the structure, it was the brain. Mira's eyes widened, her voice soft with horror. "This is it," she whispered. "This is what controls everything." Hale stepped closer, scanning the machine. His hands shook as he read the strange alien signals on his screen. "This isn't a colony," he said slowly. "This is a weapon." Before Mira could answer, the chamber shook again. Commander entered, the massive alien leader with glowing red eyes. Behind it, hundreds of drones crawled along the walls and ceiling. The sound of their claws scraped like thunder. Mira's breath caught in her throat. "There's no way out," she whispered. The commander stepped closer. Its eyes locked onto them. It raised its claw, and the machine at the center glowed brighter. The symbols on the walls twisted into sharp shapes. Suddenly, the chamber filled with visions. Not real images, but flashes in their minds. Mira and Hale fell to their knees. Clutching their heads, they saw worlds burning, planets covered in fire. Armies of these creatures marching across alien lands. They saw ships leaving the colony, spreading like shadows across the stars. And then they saw Earth, blue and bright, turning red under the same destruction. The visions burned into their minds until their screams echoed through the chamber. Back on the Aurora, Elias and the remaining crew saw the same flashes. The colony had reached into their minds. Pulling their fears wide open, Arik grabbed his head, screaming, "They're coming for Earth," he shouted. Ilias's face hardened, but fear filled his eyes. "We have to stop it," he said, "no matter the cost." Inside the chamber, Mira staggered to her feet. She looked at the massive machine, the brain of the colony. If it was destroyed, maybe the creatures would stop, but how? They had no weapons, no time, no hope. Hale stumbled beside her. "There's only one way," he said, his voice weak. "We overload the ship's core. We bring it down on this place, and we end it." Mira froze, her eyes wide with terror. "That will kill us," she whispered. Hale nodded slowly, his face pale but determined. "It's the only way Earth survives," the commander screeched, its sound like metal tearing apart. The drones moved closer, their glowing eyes filling the chamber. Mira clenched her fists, tears running down her face. She thought of Jonas, of their mission, of the countless lives back home. Then she nodded. "Do it," she said, back on the Aurora. Elias heard their plan through the broken coms, his heart twisted with pain. He knew they were right, but it meant losing everything. "Prepare the ship," he ordered. Arik shook his head in horror. "That will destroy us too." He cried. Elias looked at him, his voice steady but heavy. "If they reach Earth, there won't be a home left to return to." Inside the chamber, Hale rushed to connect his scanner into the alien machine. The drones lunged forward, but Mira fought with everything she had. She swung pipes, threw broken debris, screamed in rage. Each second bought them a moment more. Hale's hands flew across his scanner, his face covered in sweat. The machine shook, the lights flaring red. "It's working," he shouted. "They're losing control." The drones screeched, their bodies jerking violently. Some collapsed, sparks exploding from their limbs, but the commander roared, slamming its claw into the floor. The shockwave knocked Mira down, her body crashing against the wall, blood-filled. Her mouth, but she forced herself back up, her vision blurred, but her will burned stronger on the Aurora. Elias triggered the overload. The ship screamed with alarms, its engines glowing hotter than ever before. The colony trembled, the machine pulsing wildly. Mira and Hale looked at each other, their faces pale but resolute. This was the end. The commander lunged one final time. Its claws reached for Myra, but before it struck, the machine exploded with blinding light. A wave of fire and energy tore through the chamber. The drones screamed, their bodies shattering.
Actors.
The commander's glowing eyes dimmed. The walls of the colony cracked and collapsed from space. The Aurora glowed like a dying star. The explosion spread across the alien structure. The colony broke apart, towers falling, bridges tearing. The red star of Proxima Centauri lit up with fire. For a moment, the dark void was brighter than a sun. When the light faded, only silence remained. The colony was gone, destroyed. The Aurora was gone too, sacrificed. Elias, Mira, Hale, Jonas, all of them, their story ended in fire, but far beyond the ashes. Deep in the dark void, a faint signal pulsed. It traveled across space, faster than light, reaching out to hidden places, to other colonies, to other armies. The destruction had awakened more than it had ended. Back on Earth, deep in a quiet control room, a radar beeped with a strange new signal. The operator leaned closer. "Confused, it's not from Earth," he whispered. "It's coming from Proxima Centauri." And the final words hung in the silence like a curse. "They're coming."